Okay, this is the next section of section 2 of Unit 6. It's again complex fractions. They're just a little more complicated than the ones before, but the method is the same. Get the numerator into a single fraction using a common denominator. Get the denominator as a common fraction, one fraction, and then invert and multiply. You're going to have to add first and then factor and then cancel out factors. So let's go through some of these and show those examples. Here you have k plus 1 over k plus 2. So the denominator is going, k minus 2. The denominator is going to be k minus 2. So I'm going to multiply this first k by k minus 2 over k minus 2. And that's k over 1. That will give that a common denominator with the second part of the fraction, 1 over, or the second part of the equation, 1 over k minus 2. Now, the first thing you have to do, that's the numerator, as we continue on with the numerator, this k is going to have to be distributed to both the elements in this binomial. So we'll end up with k squared minus 2k plus 1, and all of that will be over k minus 2. Now in the denominator fraction, this 1 is going to have the common denominator of k minus 2. So we'll have k squared over k minus 2 plus 1 times k minus 2 over k minus 2. And so that will combine to be k squared plus k minus 2, all of that over k minus 2. Now we've got single fractions in the numerator and denominator. So when you divide by a fraction, you invert and multiply. So we write the numerator fraction just as it is. And then make it a multiplication and invert the other fraction, or give the reciprocal of the other fraction, the denominator fraction. Now, we can't really do much with this. We see that these k minus 2's can cancel, but we need to factor this part of this numerator. And so, if we multiplied, we would find that this factors as k minus 1 times k minus 1. And the denominator will factor as k plus 2 times k minus 1. And that's multiplying across, and then you see I just factored that numerator and denominator. Then we can further, now I said 1 and wrote 2, so let me fix that. That should be a 1. So we see that that whole factor there can cancel. And so the final answer, simplified, is k minus 1 over k plus 2. Now, looking at this next problem, or this next example, if you look at the numerator part, this denominator is xy, this one is y squared. So our common denominator is going to be xy squared. So that means we have to multiply this first one by y over y. And the second one, we need to multiply by x over x in order to get that common denominator of x times y squared. And y times 1 is y, so my numerator will be y minus x times 1, which is x. Now, that's just the numerator fraction combined at, we've got to subtract it and combine it as one fraction first. Let's work on the denominator. Our least common denominator here is going to be x squared, y squared. So the first factor, or the first fraction in the denominator, will have to be multiplied by y over y. and it's minus again. And the second one will have to be multiplied by x over x, which is going to give me again a y minus x over x squared y squared. Okay. So now we're going to take those two fractions, y minus x over xy squared, make it a multiplication problem, and invert the denominator fraction. Now, these are in parentheses because they have a minus sign, they are a plus sign. So that has to stay together as a group. We can't cancel those out unless the whole factor cancels. It so happens this one does match, so y minus x can cancel with the y minus x in the denominator. The y squareds can cancel out completely. X squared over x is going to be x. So this 1x is going to cancel one of these. So we're left, the answer to this, simplified, is just x. Now there's two more examples, so we'll move on to those. Get to the mouse. Move down. Okay. Fractions will come up. Right. This one looks a little more complicated, but it is a single fraction in the numerator, so that's going to stay the same for right now. We'll factor it later, but there's nothing more we can do with that numerator. It's already a single fraction, so we'll leave that alone. This denominator has to be made into a common denominator, and that's going to be x plus 3 times x plus 1. So what that means is I have to multiply this first one by x plus 1. So we have 4 times x plus 3 times x plus 1 times x plus 1 plus the second fraction in the denominator has to be multiplied by x plus 3 because that's the part that's not there. Okay. Now when we combine those, again, the numerator stays the same. Okay. And the denominator is going to be, the denominator part of the denominator fraction is going to be x plus 3 times x plus 1. This numerator has two parts. It's 4 times x plus 1. So that's going to be 4x plus 4. We're going to distribute that 4. And then this 2 is going to distribute here on this x plus 3. So that's going to be plus 2x plus 6. Okay. Now, this is going to combine to be 6x plus 10. So let's rewrite this. Combine what we can. We're going to factor this denominator. I told you we would later, so we're going to do that now. That's going to be x plus 3 times x plus 1. Multiply by the inverse of this. So x plus 3 times x plus 1 is in the numerator. And then you're going to have 6x plus 10. Okay, now we see right away that these can cancel, these factors. Now the 6x plus 10 can further factor. We can factor out a 2, and then that'll be 3x plus 5. And that's the same as this, so it's going to take its place. When we do that, this 2 can cancel. And so our final answer is going to be x over 3x plus 5. Okay. So you get common denominators, add them together, distribute, then combine, and refactor if you need to. And then you cancel out all the factors that you can. All right, again, single denominator here. So we have 3x over x squared minus 4, which we'll factor later as a difference of squares. Now, if you notice on this denominator here, we can factor out a 2, That ends up with x plus 2. So what that means is we already have an x plus 2 in this denominator, so all we have to do is multiply this one by 2 over 2. Okay. So our denominator down here is going to be 2 times x plus 2. We don't have to do anything with this fraction. And so we have 4 times 2 is 8 plus 2 there. Or, just make it easy, we can know what 8 plus 2 is. We'll just erase that and go ahead and just put the 10. Okay. Now we're going to have 3x, and we're going to factor that as a difference of squares. That's x minus 2 times x plus 2. We're going to take this second fraction, denominator fraction, and invert it or flip it. So you have 2 times x plus 2 over 10. Now we're going to see what can we cancel. Well, x plus 2 will cancel. Those factors match. 2 will go into 10 5 times. And so there's not an x by itself. Remember that I can't cancel this x of this factor. The whole factor has to cancel. So in the numerator, we're left with 3x, and that's over 5 times x minus 2. And that'll be your answer. Now, on your homeworks for this section, you do have answers in random order for some of their problems, so be sure you check those at the end of each homework.